The K Jazz Show, Sundays on Kofifi FM 97.2.
Welcome back. You are with Kofifi FM 97.2 on our weekly Our Africa feature on today's edition of the K Jazz Show. As the sun rises and the melodies of the past, present, and future intertwine, we are thrilled, to welcome an artist whose voice has graced some of the world's most prestigious stages. His journey in music began at the tender age of 11, singing in renowned choirs before evolving into a seasoned vocalist, working alongside legends such as Jonathan Butler, Kirk Whalum, Oleta Adams, and Diana Ross. He has captivated audiences across the globe, performed for world leaders, and lent his artistry to some of the finest jazz recordings in South Africa and beyond. Kofifi FM, please help me welcome the incomparable Heinrich Frans to the K Jazz Show ahead of his much anticipated performance at this year's Journey to Jazz Festival that is happening in Prince Albert in the month of May.
The night, spreading your sunshine, lighting life. Someone
Heinrich, welcome to the show. Absolutely a pleasure to have you.
Hey, Ngwako, thank you so much for having me. It's wonderful to be here. Thank you.
Pleasure is always ours. Of course, let's begin, with your journey that began when you were just 11 years old in some of the country's most prestigious choirs. Let's reflect on those early years and how they shaped the artists that you are today.
Well, Ngwako, I consider myself very fortunate, or as the church folk would say, blessed, to have been involved as a singer and as a soloist in some of the country's most prolific choirs, actually. These were all professional choirs that you actually had to audition to be a part of. And I was fortunate enough to also have grown up in a home where, my father was a classically trained pianist and organist. And so music was really a part of the fibre of the home. Him having been a classically trained pianist and organist meant that there was always classical music being played in the home, both in the context of instrumental music as well as tons of choral music. My dad is in his late 60s currently, and believe it or not, is still involved in classical music in so many ways as an events coordinator, putting together festivals for primary school and high school choirs. He's still conducting choirs himself, as well as choirs and orchestras together. So, music was kind of something that just chose me, as cliche as it sounds. Of course, coming up in the world of classical music is something that I will always treasure, purely because of the amount of focus that I was forced to place on really learning my instrument in a very sort of technical way from point A to where I am currently. So I value my time in the classical world. And funny enough, the older I've become, even though the jazz bug bit me somewhere along the line, the more I seem to want to return to the world of classical music as well. And I've been doing that of late. So.
And you've worked, with a stellar lineup of artists from the likes of Jonathan Butler to Diana Ross. Can you maybe share some standout moments or highlights, from collaborating with such iconic musicians?
Oh man, I absolutely can. So I'll try and paint the picture for you and your listeners as best as I can. I recall a moment at the Cape Town International Jazz Festival many, many years ago, where I was on stage with Jonathan. And in fact, this happened twice. The first time I looked around, and here's the thing, man. When when you're young and on the come up, as they say, and all you're doing is just really pushing yourself to the limits and working as hard as you can at your craft, and trying to push ahead in the game and in industry as best as you can. You kind of get to a point where you sometimes forget to just savor the moment, right? Because you're so caught up in the hustle and grind of it all. But man, I'll tell you what, on 2 occasions, whilst working with the likes of Jonathan Butler, which I consider myself fortunate to have done, I stood on stage to his left. I turned around and had a look at what was actually happening behind me, and I had a moment where I looked at what was happening behind me and went, oh my goodness, you had asked me 25 years ago if I knew that I would be on the same stage as A, Jonathan Butler, B, a Kirk Whalum, C, an Oleta Adams, D, a Patty Austin. Yeah, those are really the moments that stuck with me and stood out for me, is turning around, realizing, oh my goodness, I'm on a stage with an inordinate amount of my musical heroes. Gosh, I mean, moments with the great Will Kennedy comes to anyone who's a Yellow Jackets fanatic knows who Will Kennedy is one of the most incredible jazz drummers, and I've had the privilege of sharing a stage with him and several others too. So I'm very fortunate, I think, to have done so, and those are significant moments for me, purely based on the contributions, the musical contributions that list of people has made, and there's several others too, thankfully.
What's new? How is the world treating you? You haven't changed a bit. Lovely as ever, I must admit. What's new? How did that romance come through? We haven't met since then. Gee, but it's nice to see you again. But seeing you is grand, and you are sweet to offer your hand. but seeing you is grand, and you were sweet to offer your hand.
Coffee FM. We're speaking to musician Heinrich Frans this Sunday. And of course, time traveling is what we're doing this Sunday as well, because I mean, he has traveled and has worked with so many other incredible, musicians. And if you've just joined us, we're talking about his beginnings in music and how jazz has become a part of his artistry. And of course, he's also celebrated as an educator and a mentor, who has been instrumental and has served at the Cape Music Institute, Stellenbosch University, including the Wits School of the Arts. And I want to talk to you, Heinrich, about, music education and the importance of keeping this institution active in order to preserve the South African music traditions and legacies. What is your take on this?
Ngwako, I think music education is absolutely vital. I mean, we don't need any more scientific proof of how music helps with the development of the brain and cognitive thinking, etc. There's such an incredible amount of evidence and research that tells us this, that shows us this. And so, we're in a very interesting sort of, I think, period as far as how music education is reaching people that it needs to reach. Unfortunately, we live in an era where, music in schools sadly has disappeared, primary schools in particular, and high schools for that matter. Music just isn't a part of the curriculum's focus at so many of our schools, particularly schools in previously disadvantaged areas where for some, reason you just so happen to find the most talent. And so that's a great pity. And the system, I feel, has failed over a number of years. There seems to be a glimmer of hope with Minister Gayton McKenzie taking such a progressive sort of approach to stirring things up within arts and culture. One can only hope that will bode well for music education moving forward, particularly on school level, primary school and high school level. But then at the same time, there are such an incredible amount of online platforms that are available at a music student's disposal in 2025. I mean, platforms like Open Studio comes to mind. And hopefully there are some young music students listening. Some may not be au fait, may not be familiar with a platform like Open Studio, but there's one example of several where music education is now accessible online in the most effective of ways. The school is run by an incredible jazz pianist named Peter Martin. Peter Martin just so happened to be a part of Roy Hargrove's bands many years ago. So there's absolutely no dispute that he is a phenomenal musician, and secondly, an incredible educator as well. And for any young student who can spend hours on IG, if they're musical and want to learn something worth learning from a musical perspective, then those hours they spend on the gram and on TikTok could be better spent on platforms like Open Studio and it's incredible the quality of the information on offer there. I mean, how's this? I mean, you would identify with this. If you were a young singer who wanted to learn to sing jazz but couldn't, you can't find a teacher around you, you can't find a coach around you, you know, and lo and behold, you have access to the great Diane Reeves on a platform like Open Studio. I mean, you know, can you ask for anything more than that? No, you can't.
You can't.
So you know, you absolutely can't. So it's all out there. It's all accessible. I think it really just takes a willingness on the young students' part to actually want to engage effectively in that kind of material. I think, you know, we're fast running out of excuses, young folks in particular. It's all out there, man. Yeah.
You know, I wanted to also, you know, still on the conversation of education, master classes at the Journey to Jazz Festival from our visiting musicians have become part of the experience at this festival. An opportunity, you know, to share incredible stories about your walk with music for those who will be attending. You know, let's talk about some of the topics that you would like to explore and maybe share during those sessions, I guess.
Yeah, well, I think I alluded to that in my previous statement around commerce. You know, one of the toughest things in the current climate in 2025 is kind of having the world of art and commerce, having that collide in a way that's effective and sustainable for creatives, for artists. You know, so I'm looking forward to a conversation around man, it's almost an extreme level of accessibility now, especially as far as, you know, us living in the information age is concerned. But, you know, even though there's that increased level of accessibility, the industry is still so plagued with teething problems around these newer, you know, digital models that now exist, particularly as it pertains to distribution. So those are the kinds of conversations, aside from, of course, the nuts and bolts of it all, the music of it all. Those, I feel, are vitally important conversations to have, because, you know, talent means nothing if you can't sustain it, you know, on a full-time basis, or you know, in a sustainable sort of way. I mean, these days, you know, there's absolutely nothing wrong with holding down a 9-to-5 and, you know, making music as a sort of, I don't want to say as a second to that, you know, I don't even want to call it that, because look, if we look at musicians like Pat Metheny, for example, you know, Pat's one of those musicians who has found a balance between the worlds of music education and live performance, live touring around the globe, you know, and this is how he has made a sustainable living out of music for the longest time. So that's but one model. Of course, for generations after him, there are several other layers that you know, one could table within the conversation as well. And those are the sorts of conversations I so look forward to having in those master classes.
We look forward to all of that. And of course, if you're listening and you're going to be at the festival, be ready to, you know, immerse yourself in this wealth of knowledge, and of course, how you can navigate this thing called entertainment, you know, within, you know, the ambit of your talent, and how you can make it work from a financial perspective and sustain the rest of your, you know, your talent as you tour and create and maybe even teach. As our guest this Sunday, of course, his name is Heinrich Frans, and he's our guest on the K-Jazz show, Our Africa. And this is ahead of his appearance and performances at the Journey to Jazz Festival, which, you know, is happening from the 1st to the 4th of May 2025. Now, Heinrich, the Journey to Jazz Festival is all about storytelling through music. And maybe, you know, can you give us a glimpse, you know, into what you are going to be doing on stage at the festival?
Absolutely, I can, Ngwako. There are so many, you know, composers who I feel has been left out of the conversation amongst the bigger dogs, the bigger cats, like, you know, Bekim Saleko and Abdullah Ibrahim, you know, composers like Mac McKenzie, like Hilton Schilder, like Alu April, like the incredible Musa Manzini. These are Mark Fransman, Frank Paco. These are composers who comes to mind who are just absolutely incredible at what they do and are actually personal musical heroes of mine, who I feel haven't quite gotten the credit that they deserve, as far as just the sheer quality of their creative output is concerned. And so this is what I'm looking to remedy in my two performances at the festival this year, is I want to pay homage to those incredible composers. Man, if I could have a longer list of composers to pay homage to, I absolutely would, because there's so many more just like them who are deserving of that level of regard.
And I'm just listening to you speak right now, and I'm thinking about how this setting is such befitting. Prince Albert as a destination has so much incredible sights and sounds that will be, part of the festival experience. What are you as an artist and maybe as a tourist, looking forward to experiencing in Prince Albert?
Oh, so I've had the pleasure of visiting Prince Albert on a number of occasions, in the context of some of the developmental work that I've done within music. And let me tell you, Ngwako, Prince Albert is easily my favorite town, if not in the country, in the world for sure. There's nothing more quaint,
yes,
on the face of this earth than the town of Prince Albert. Between the cross-pollination of cultures, between the incredible gallery out there, the art gallery, the incredible artist Falco's work being so visible within that town as well, and then this really important and man, easily one of the most effective entities known as PACT, and the work that they do, their involvement in the Journey to Jazz Festival as well.
Yeah.
There's just a different energy amongst people and creatives in Prince Albert that is second to none, really. And there's so much impactful work happening within that town. And man, I can only but commend all of the folks involved in Journey to Jazz for doing such incredible work to make a valuable and sustainable contribution towards the art and its creators.
With such a rich career behind you, Heinrich, what keeps you inspired, to keep performing, composing, and innovating, I suppose, in music?
Wow. Well, I think what keeps me inspired, Ngwako, is just the rate at which things move and evolve in 2025, for better or worse. That's really what keeps me inspired. I'm a bit of a techno junkie. A lot of people actually don't know that aside from my work as a performer, I'm involved in a host of other spheres. I'm also an audio engineer by trade, and so the incredible advancements that we've seen in the audio industry over the last number of years, and how that has positively impacted creatives and industry, is just an incredible thing to see. For me, if we're talking jazz, I was fortunate enough to actually mix and master an album by the incredible The SN Project, an artist named Sipepelo Ndlovu, who has a debut album named Africanization. I mixed and mastered that album. So much of the work that I do in that space really excites me and really just serves as a daily reminder of how far we've come.
We look forward to hearing where you go with music next. I mean, you've painted this wonderful canvas of this work that you do, and how and I love how the passion just comes through. And I look forward to particularly, the conversations during the master classes at the festival. Those are going to be very, very interesting, with all this knowledge and all this wealth of experience that you'll be bringing, including, the performances that we can look forward to. Really, it's going to be a fantastic, fantastic festival. As we wrap up, Heinrich, for the aspiring jazz musician tuning in this morning, and I know we tapped it, a little bit earlier, but what is that one piece of advice that you wish somebody had given you when you started your journey?
Well, I think I've been very fortunate in that I've always been surrounded by really great mentors all my life, and man, I thank God for that. And they always, sort of kept me on the straight and narrow. I of course always maintained a high level of respect and reverence for them, because I believe in this concept of really looking towards the elders, for guidance. Of course, sometimes these elders that I'm referring to, their journeys are challenging, and they become very cynical, and some of them take that out on the younger generation. Thankfully, I didn't have too much of that growing up, but I think the important thing for me has always been just respecting them enough so that they want to engage with you, that they want to impart knowledge and wisdom to you. I feel that that's important. I feel that these days being a creative in music is different to many years ago. It's almost necessary now for you to have a thorough understanding of technology. Artists like Jacob Collier comes to mind. He has the ability to walk into a studio in the morning and leave there with a fully produced album, having done everything himself. And the interesting thing is, I genuinely feel as though that kind of thing is something that most people, if not all of us, can achieve. Jacob is as gifted as he is. I don't believe he's that much different to any of us. He just put the work in, And then, of course, once you've put the work in and you've got something in hand, then it's about really understanding what to do with what you have in hand from a business perspective, And man, industry changes by the hour these days. So it's really important to stay abreast of trends and just being an eternal student of not only the art, but of the business side of things too. The technology side of things has become really important too. I think it's more a holistic sort of way of existing now that's important for any measure of success in industry.
Heinrich, thank you so much for joining us on the K-Jazz Show, and we can't wait to experience your magic at the Journey to Jazz Festival. And of course, if you missed it, the festival happens from the 1st to the 4th of May 2025 in the beautiful Karoo town of Prince Albert. And for more information, do head to our social media pages and Instagram and Facebook at Journey to Jazz Official, and also journeytojazz.co.za. And of course, that's where you can get all the links to everything that you need to do to get yourself a seat at the festival. Thank you so much for joining us, sir, and we can't wait to see you at the festival.
Thank you, Ngwako. Thanks for having me, you and your listeners. I appreciate it.
He is educator, mentor, musician. He is Heinrich Frans, and he was on the K-Jazz Show.